All right, all right. Hello, hello, everyone. How are you doing? Hope you are doing amazingly well. And yeah, we are here. We are here, and we're going to be talking about knowing when to say no. And of course, I've experienced that for myself, and I feel really good about it. So that's what I'm going to be discussing with you all tonight. And I know I'm on here definitely a lot bit later than I had intended, but I also have to listen to my body. And my body is like, yeah, so we're not going to function right now. So I was like, okay. So let me do what I do best. Let's cue that music. And then we'll share, I will share some more risen crafts with you guys. Let's go ahead and cue the music. God's gift through His word. It's God's gift through His word. It's God's gift through His word. It's God's gift through His word. All right, I am back with you guys, and I think I'm going to enjoy doing this often, sharing little bits of crafts with you guys because that's what I do, right? So I'm going to share some of the things that I do with you guys here now. So I will share them with you so that you can also see that, yeah, there are other things that I do as well, but some of those things I do when I'm feeling like, there's a lot going on and I need to figure it out. So I do. I figure it out and I'm like, okay, thank you, self, for figuring it out. And I definitely sometimes find myself praying to the Lord. So that I can get clarity, and I pray to the Lord often. So this is not like a new thing I do. For some of you, like, what? You don't pray to the Lord all the time? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. So yeah, let me go ahead and share with you guys a couple of different let me see, resin crafts. That's what I was gonna say. So I'm gonna share that with you guys so that you can see them and you're like, oh yay, okay. So here we go. I'm gonna just put that up here for you guys. Voila. Okay. Those are some resin crafts I did. They're for necklaces. And I'm gonna switch to other ones so you can see them individually, what they look like up close. That's one. I think that's the back. Or yeah, I think that's the back. And so let me see. I have a whole bunch of different kinds. There's that one. And then here's one and it's purple. I have different like pictures of it. There we go, with the glitter in different sizes. And then I'm gonna show you the other one because I think I took it from the inside or from the behind it. And I just like doing these. So here's this one too. I'll share it with you guys. There we go. That's it. I don't know if it's the same thing. Is it the same one? It might be. Maybe I just made it bigger. Anyway, I just really had a good time today because I did my last women's life group today, and we had some food. So also going to share that with you guys. It was for something very light, but I wanted to share that because, sometimes when I am doing my thing, I'm like, oh, so it's just a little tiny bit of a setup. And then I like took pictures of just, what we were doing, right? So I had a picture that we got a chance to like create as it was about joy and those things that bring you joy. And it's not always like stuff, right? And definitely when I am thinking about the Lord, I am here's my joy. I'm thinking about the Lord. I want to study His Word. I had my kids bring me joy, and of course, Jesus is all encompassing. So He's all of that. So I'm just blessed with those things that I get to enjoy. And I'm just like, okay, this is good stuff here. So let me get out of here, get back to my normal, and we'll just get into this message. So here I am back with you guys. Well, my avatar is back with you guys. And of course, God's Get Through His Word podcast and God's Get Through His Word YouTube channel on both of the channels. One's got like barely anybody over there because I made that channel. And then I have the other one. So tonight when I got on, and I was like, do I need to get on tonight? Because it's kind of late. And this is really late for me, past the time I normally get on, but I did need to. And it's because the exhaustion that I felt was the part where I was saying the no to, and Sunday, which is still today because it's not midnight yet. I had told the pastor like, yeah, I told him last week that I was kind of done with the women's life group because I know I was taking on too much things in the community, too much things at church, too much things with my kids, too much other things, and my body can only do so much. And if I keep doing that, I don't want to run into the problem of, well, not only am I burned out and exhausted, but I've run my body down to the point that I'm not functioning good and I'm not even good enough for my kids anymore. So I took a step back, and when I talk about the stuff, I'm always talking to my dear friend Pastor Jay, and he is a wise man. And he said, "Why don't we just not get to the point where you're overwhelmed, when you're kind of drowning, so to speak. You're drowning in those things. Like, let's stop before we get there, and let's not continue to push because what that feels like. You know when you're going to get there, and if you're about to push to that limit, let's pull back from that." And I decided that's what I was going to do. Instead of getting to the point where I normally do, I just take all these things on and I continue to say yes, and I never say no, and I never stop. I never give myself that break to say, I don't believe that I can take this on, and I need to realize, and some of us need to stop and pause and realize our capacity. You literally want to do everything, and that's great, but you can't, right? And I'm not saying like you're not able to because you don't know how to. No, you can do these things. It's just if your mental, your physical, your spiritual are going to suffer because of it, you do have to take a step back, and you have to take a pause, take a break, and realize like, man, I need to know when it's the time to put the pause on some things, and release some things. Now, I think this is the one of the things that I've released, and I might be releasing some other things if it starts to get a little too much for me. And trying to take on more, even in the community. Even with volunteering, sometimes you think you're doing something really great, and then it's like, well, since you're here, let me just dump this all on you. No, that's not about how it's that's not how it's going to go. Because I want to volunteer, but I want to do it, and I want to do it well. But I also want to know my limits in that capacity as well. So sometimes we have to take a step back and remember, yes, there is a lot of things you might want to do. Like, I want to do the most, right? I want to figure out how to do this and how to do that. But at the end of the day, my mind, my body, and everything is just too much. And my young daughter, she asked me, "Mom, are you tired after this?" I said, "Yeah." She's like, "You need to take a nap. You need to go lay down." And my daughter telling me, and I said, "You know what? Maybe I go upstairs and just go lay down in my bed." Well, a few hours later, yeah, my body was like, "We need this," and I didn't take my nap, my normal Sunday nap before I go and do my life group because I really should have, and I didn't. And I'm like, okay, so I was extremely exhausted because I didn't have a power up. So yeah, I was, pulling on my last, but I really realized that there are things that we think we're going to do, but after I've been reading, and today we were talking about chasing happy, which interchangeably the person who was talking about was say chasing happy interchangeably, using it with joy. But anyway, needless to say, sometimes we chase the wrong things and we try to find our happiness in everything that we're trying to do. But that joy that is never changing and always with you, because Jesus Christ gives that to you, it's never going to change based on circumstances. And you can find joy even in the hardest of things. And I'm telling you this because I still, I still am very thankful for the things I'm able to do. And I still have joy in the things I take part in. And it doesn't make me or break me if I have to say, hey, let me stop for a moment and pause. So Proverbs 16:3 says, commit your works to the Lord and your thoughts will be established. Let the Lord dictate to you what you're to do instead of saying, you know what, Lord, I believe you want me to do this. Lord, I believe you want me to do this. If the Lord's not calling you to do all of these things, then you ought to not be doing all of these things. Just doing the things, and you're like, then you get burnt out, then you're overwhelmed, then you have resentment. Now you're angry, you're frustrated. Why do they keep putting all this on me? Well, they didn't put it on you. You stayed in that thing, or you were volunteered for that thing, or you jumped in that thing, and now you're holding on to that thing like you cannot let it go. Can I tell you it's okay? It's okay to use that two-letter word, no, N-O, full sentence with a period, full stop, no explanation needed unless you want to provide one. But if you cannot do something, it is very okay to say no, even with family. Sometimes we take on things in our familial relationships and we say, I could do this, I could do this. And when they expect so much out of you, when they expect so much out of you, now you have a feeling of resentment. Like, why do they always expect this out of me? Why don't they ever chip in? Or why don't they ever offer to invite me over? Or why don't they ever take on this thing? Why do I always have to be the one that does this for birthdays? Or why do I always have to be the one that goes out and does this thing, this task for anniversaries for the family? Why doesn't any other family member take on whatever it is? And we need to know that there are other people, not just in our familial area, but also in the body of Christ. There are other family members that can take on some things, that can do some of the lifting as well. And we need to pray for that. All of us in the body of Christ need to pray for that, that more of our brothers and sisters that are not participating would participate to help and find their space, find their place to serve, to love, to be in sharing of the load, because we know the harvest is plenty and the laborers are few, as we know the word does say. But when you find those things and you want to do them, make sure that you know if you really can do it. I mean, from a mental, physical, and spiritual standpoint, if you know you're giving too much because you're doing other things and you're already pouring out energy here and you're pouring out your energy here and you're giving of your time here, you're giving of your time here, do you know you only have so much time and you only have so much energy that you can give. And when you start giving out everywhere, your energy becomes watered down. You become watered down about how you're giving that, and it becomes a watered down thing of you just doing because you're doing numbers of things but not quality of things, which Pastor Jay helped me to understand as well. Sometimes we want to talk about time invested with numbers and dates and things of that nature, but there's no quality to your service. There should be a quality to your service, and you're not just doing because I do this, I do this, I do this. You're just racking up the numbers. I do like these 20 things, but all those 20 things, you're not really giving quality service and quality commitment to it. You're just really just doing the things to say on your checklist and on your own personal resume to yourself. I do this, I do this, I do this. And you're checking off that proverbial list that I've done this, I've done this. So that's making this amazing person. And then don't get me wrong, it's amazing to volunteer, it's amazing to serve. It really is. But when you're just doing it to get the attaboys or the attagirls, or you're doing it for your own pride reason to make yourself feel good because you're trying to bolster your ego, you must be careful of that. You don't make yourself an idol, right? Trying to please yourself, making yourself your own God. It's one thing to make other people your God, and that's bad. But when you make yourself your own God, like, look at what I'm doing, Lord. Look at the things I'm doing for you. Look at the things I'm doing here. That's also really, really bad. So be careful of moving in that vein because it is a slippery slope down to the wrong path. And if you catch yourself going that way, let's take a hard pause. Let's do a course correction and like, you know what? I need to stop. This is not really benefiting me and I don't want to be a hindrance to somebody else. And sometimes when you say no to something, and it might be something that you really like doing but you need to pause. There might be somebody else that there's an opportunity now for them to step up and for them to take that on, for them to showcase what the Lord has given to them to do. And you might have been in that spot for a minute and now you've opened the door and now it's time for them to take that thing on, but you'll never know that if you're always trying to do all the things. Like, I can do it. Oh, I'll do it. Oh, I'll do it. There's other people. There's definitely other people. And you gotta sometimes know when it is the good thing to do and the right thing to do to say no. It's also a healthy thing because you don't want to stress yourself out to the point that things that you're doing are stopping you from really giving joyfully of your time, right? You don't want to give it begrudgingly because if you're going to do that, you don't even need to bother. If you're not going to sing with joy, then don't do it. If you're not going to serve with joy because you have a heart to greet people, then don't do it. If you're not going to give with joy and be a cheerful giver, then don't give. There's nothing more not good. Let me just say that. And in my way, there's nothing more disappointing. And probably just someone would just be turned off. Like, you gave that $1, but you were really mad about it. Keep your dollar. If it given $100 and you just feel grudgingly about it, then keep it. Like, it's okay. You know what I mean? But all those different things that go through your mind and all those different things that you do, just remember and know your capacity, realize it, and understand it is okay to say no. And I have Proverbs 16 open again because I'm going to use some verses from there again. And so, verse 7 says, when a man's ways please the Lord, he makes even his enemies to be at peace with him. Your ways that you do, that the Lord sees you're doing right, He will reward you for that. You're being faithful to the task that He's giving you, whether it be a large one or menial. If you're being faithful in what He's called you to do, don't think that the Lord's not watching. Sometimes we can think, well, I'm doing these things, the Lord must not see. Of course, He sees. He neither sleeps nor slumbers, so he's well aware of what you're doing, even if it's just you in a place, in a space, alone by yourself. If you're walking and you're greeting people out on the street, but nobody knows that you do that, know that the Lord knows you're doing it. If you're going over to the places of the battered women's shelter, the abused women's shelters, and you're helping and you're giving of your time, know that the Lord sees you doing that. Nobody else may even know that you do it, but the Lord sees that you're giving of your time and you're doing it from a place of care, sincerity, and of love. And that's why you're doing it. Love must be the biggest thing of why you're doing it, because you care and you love people. You need to love God and love God's people, right? So even when people that you think are your enemies, when they see you, because the Lord has has provided, right, for them to be able to see what you do. But it says in the word that even he makes even his enemies to be at peace with him. So there could be some random people coming to mess with you, but if they are your enemies and the Lord says no, they'll be at peace with you. Even your enemies can be at peace. Isn't that a beautiful thing? That your enemies are at peace with you, like, hey, I thought we had an issue. Well, not with God, right? Not with God. God works that out. So we have to be careful to committing ourselves to rolling up to just doing things and then knowing that our capacity is at a limit and we're trying to just still do because we want to show that we can do these things. And once again, I'm not telling you and I'm not telling myself that I can't do these things. Of course I can. But at the same time, I once again need to realize my limits. There is a limit and we have those. And we need to make sure we are setting our boundaries because people will let you do whatever. If you say you can, they're not going to say, oh, no, you can't. Like, okay, if you can, great, here you go. And you say, I can do this too. Oh, really? Well, you say you can. Okay, great. Here you go. It's not a thing of them doing it or these individuals that you keep telling them you can do things. It's not like they're purposely putting stuff on you like, well, you keep volunteering yourself. If you keep volunteering yourself and say, I can, I can, I can, I can, and then now you're like, oh my gosh, I'm doing so much and I feel so overwhelmed. Well, see, you took on too much. And you have to be mindful and careful of that, right? So when you think that you have the way you're going to go and the steps you're going to take, remember the Lord directs those. He directs all of those. And Proverbs 69 says, a man's heart plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. So even when I may think I did the choice and select, the Lord already knew, right? That I was going to be like, yeah, I can't do this, right? And we need to be able to, once again, realize where we need to stop. There's a stopping point in certain things, and we need to be able to do that and take a pause. And guess what? That was the first time I felt very proud of not being angry and not having that sense of, I need to run away because it's too much. No, I stopped at a point where I knew that was good for me. And it was. And I'm so thankful. So this is not going to be a very, I don't believe, a very long one today, but I do want you to realize, and whether you're listening on the YouTube or whether you're listening on the Spotify or any other podcast platform, and you hear this particular message, understand and know when you need to say no and oh. Know when you need to say no. And when you realize that, say it and don't feel afraid of it. Say it, be truthful about what you are doing. And if you have too many things that you're doing, you have too much on your plate, you need to scale some things back, right? We try to be the person that wants to do everything. And even me, sometimes I'm like, oh, I can do this and can do that. And then you realize, whoa, I took on a little bit more than I can handle. And sometimes I got to reevaluate, reassess, and look at the things I'm taking on. And I do. And I'm going to be doing that again, right? So if you're finding yourself in that way, be careful. and just sit back and recalibrate everything and just take a little bit of a reset for yourself, a restart. Like, you know what? Do I need to do this thing? Is this what God has called me to do? Because sometimes, like I said, you might be saying the Lord called you to do that and you didn't. You just decided to take something else on to yourself. And I want to caution you from doing that. And nothing wrong with serving for the Lord, you should. But remember in what capacity that your limits allow you to do it in the state of good quality, providing that service or that volunteering or whatever it is. Are you doing it out of quality? Or are you doing it out of quantity? Right? You don't want to do it because of how many things you're doing, but you want to do it because you love what you're doing. You want to give quality of service in whatever capacity that is, or whatever that looks like. And you want to take that time in that moment to be authentic and real and genuine. And if it's too much and you have too much on your plate, then I suggest you take some things off. And it's okay to say, you know what? I can't do that. Right? And you're not a bad person for saying, yeah, mentally, physically, spiritually, I just don't have the energy for it. And my body let me know and realize that I don't, right? I need to take a break and I'm taking my break now. And yeah, I reached my limit and my break is needed. So I am so thankful and glad and I thank the Lord for his mercies and I thank him for his grace and definitely his love. But when I'm doing these things and I'm just gonna be from now on looking at all the things that I'm doing and saying, listen, do you need to do that? Is that something you need to do? Because if it's not, then you need to pull back and you need to stop and you need to pull some things off, right? So that's what I'm going to do. And I hope you'll look at the things in your life that you may have volunteered for or said you're capable of doing this particular task, this particular thing, and now you've gotten to do all of these different things. Like, wow, this is a little too much for me. I didn't know all that was taking on, right? You think you got this glass of water and you're going to drink it. And little do you know, you're drowning in the sea of water. Like, whoa, how did that happen? Because you took on too much and now you're drowning. You don't want to do that. You don't go from having a cup to just drowning in the water of the things that you're doing. You don't want to do that. You don't want to drown in overwhelm. You don't want to drown in resentment. You don't want to drown in anything like that. And those things can come up. They can come up and you can run away. And that was kind of what the pastor was talking about, how Jonah was running away. But he was running away for totally different reasons. But sometimes we run away from the Lord too. But don't run away when you know there's something that you can do about certain things that you've taken on. You can say no and know when the appropriate time is to say it before you get to the point where you feel overwhelmed and everything around you, you just feel like you're drowning and you just keep taking on more things. Can I tell you from experience, hand to the sky because I'm raising my hand, I did that. And I used to do that all the time. But was it beneficial for me? Absolutely it was not. Did it have me become resentful in a way? It did. It did. But it's a new day. It's a new dawn, and I don't want to do those old behaviors again. I've learned my lessons, and this is the time where I stand up and say, you know what? No. Right? And it's okay. So remember, you need to know what your capacity is, realize it, address it, and then move accordingly. But anything else that you're doing and you just want to take on stuff because it looks good, because you're doing all of these things, but you're mentally suffering because you took it on, you're spiritually suffering, you're physically suffering, you need to let those things go because it doesn't do you any good to try to do those things and you come and be burnt out, resentful, and you just have all these feelings that are now they're not joyful because you just feel a kind of way, and now you're in your feelings about taking on the things that you took on. Let's not do that. So know when to say no, know your limits, know the capacity you can do, and stop. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in right now. I thank you guys so much for being here. And I'm going to get out of here. But remember what I say. Remember to be blessed, motivated, and always inspired to do what the Lord lays on your heart.